Hi, John McElroy here, talking all things automotive. Do you know which automaker sells the most cars and trucks in the world? Or which one rakes in the most revenue? Who's the most profitable? And then, what may be the most important of all, which car company makes the most profit on each car and truck that they sell? That's what I want to talk about today, ranking the automakers by sales, revenue, net profit, and profit per unit. I went digging through the latest annual reports of the biggest car companies in the world, pulled out a bunch of numbers, and got to work on it. What I found was fascinating, and it really gives a good picture of what's happening in the auto industry right now. Let's start with sales. Toyota tops the list. It is number one in the world. It sold nearly 10.5 million vehicles last year, more than anyone else. That includes Toyota and Lexus, as well as the dinky little car maker Daihatsu and the big truck maker Hino, which are all owned by Toyota. Next up, the Volkswagen Group, which has more brands than you can shake a stick at. There's Volkswagen, of course, as well as Audi, Porsche, Seat, Skoda, Bentley, Bugatti, Ducati, and Lamborghini. Altogether, they sold 8.8 million vehicles. In third place is the Renault-Nissan-Mitsubishi Alliance. Put all their sales together, and they delivered 7.8 million vehicles to customers, which is a formidable number. But you will not see the Alliance show up on any of my other rankings. And that's because the Alliance is just that, an alliance. They sort of work together. But it's not a company. You can't get any P&L information about it. They don't issue an annual report. I didn't even really want to include them on this list, but because so many people would ask how they stack up against everyone else, well, they got included. This time. Fourth place goes to the Hyundai Group, which includes Kia and Genesis. Together they sold 6.6 million vehicles, which is a lot. But as you'll soon see on my other charts, despite being the fourth largest automaker in the world, Hyundai doesn't make a lot of money. Fifth place goes to General Motors at nearly 6.3 million, followed by Stellantis at 6.1. Honda is ahead of Ford, and then BMW and Mercedes-Benz round out the top 10. Of course, measuring how many cars a company sold is just one way to rank the automakers of the world. Now let's look at the top line, how much revenue each company generates every year. After all, some companies concentrate on expensive cars. So even if they don't sell as many as the rest, they can rake in a lot of revenue. Ranking the automakers by their annual revenue is a good way to measure the relative size of each company. And whereas Toyota is number one in the world when you look at sales, when you measure it by revenue, it drops down to number two. And Volkswagen, which was in second place, now steps up to number one. Then, about $100 billion behind the both of them, comes a middle group led by Stellantis, which, by this measure, is now the third largest car company in the world. Mercedes-Benz, which was at the bottom of the sales list, jumps to fourth place in revenue. And it's kind of interesting to see that Ford, General Motors, and BMW are all kind of around the same size. After that, you come to the group that hasn't quite cracked the $100 billion ceiling. It's kind of surprising to see that Hyundai, which was number 4 in the world based on how many cars it sells, drops to 8th in revenue. And looky here, Tesla sailed right past Renault in revenue, even though Renault sold 1,600,000 more vehicles than Tesla did. In fact, Tesla's not far behind Nissan, and with 2 new assembly plants coming on stream in Austin and Berlin, Tesla should easily surpass Nissan in revenue before this year is out. Okay, car sales are important, revenue is important, but now we need to know who are the most profitable car companies in the world? Who makes the most money? So here's how that looks. Mercedes-Benz was the most profitable car company last year, putting nearly $26 billion on the bottom line. But hold the presses. There's more to the story than first meets the eye. Last year, Mercedes spun off its heavy truck business and was able to book that as a $12.3 billion profit. But that's just a one-time windfall event that's not going to happen again. So let's strip that out to get a better idea of how Mercedes really ranks against everyone else. And that moves it down into 6th place. which means that Toyota is again in first place with a nice and tidy net profit of over $19 billion. Surprisingly, Ford is in second place, but there's an asterisk that goes with that one too. In the fourth quarter last year, Ford booked the value of the stock that it owns in Rivian at more than $8 billion, which boosted its profits by that amount. So, to get a truer picture of where Ford really stands, let's strip that out, which moves Ford down into seventh place. And that means Stellantis is the third most profitable car company in the industry, with $14.5 billion on the bottom line. Not bad for a merger of three car companies that officially only got going at the beginning of last year. BMW comes in fourth, with Mercedes just a couple of billion behind it, and GM is just ahead of Ford. Tesla was the eighth most profitable car company in the world, which is amazing for a company that only had 2 assembly plants running last year. Even more amazing, Tesla was more profitable than either Honda or Hyundai, even though they sold millions of more vehicles than it did. Okay, so now we've looked at sales and revenue and net profit. One more category to go. Who made the most profit on each car they sold? This is my favorite category because it's a great measure of the overall business efficiency of a company. And the results here are fascinating. Mercedes made the most profit per unit. It made nearly $6,000 on average for every vehicle that it sold. And that includes stripping out that big profit it made by selling off its heavy truck business. But look at who is in second place on a profit per unit basis. Tesla. Amazingly, it's only $14 a car behind Mercedes, but BMW is not that far behind Tesla. Then comes the first of the full-line mass-market companies. Ford is in fourth place, and that too includes stripping out that one-time big profit from the Rivian stock. And Stellantis is not too far behind Ford. Then we come to Volkswagen and Toyota, who are quite close to each other in the 6th and 7th spots. What I find so interesting here is that this is an industry where manufacturing scale is supposed to lead to the lowest costs and the highest profits. Same goes for vertical integration. Everyone says it's more profitable to make things in-house. But here, we have the two companies with the highest manufacturing volumes and who are the most vertically integrated of the traditional car companies, and yet the numbers show they're really not more profitable because of it. General Motors is in 8th place, and it's probably so far down the list because it sells a lot of low-margin cars in South America and China. I'm thinking here about that hot-selling Wuling Hongguang Mini EV that goes for under $5,000. Can't be much margin in that. Honda is in 9th place, and it is surprising to see that Hyundai only makes a profit of $703 on each car that it sells. It must make a lot of low-margin cars too. So there you have it, how the top 10 automakers stack up against each other in 4 different categories, at least in this snapshot in time. No doubt the results will look different a year from now. So, after going through all the numbers, who's the best car company of them all? Certainly VW, Mercedes, Toyota, and Tesla have got to be on the list, but who's the best of them? I'll leave that for you to decide. There sure is plenty to argue about, and that is what the comment section is for. Just keep it civil. And with that, John McElroy, over and out.